What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Cartoon Season. I am Tyler, and of course we talk about a bunch of different animation. Today we're doing a movie, and we are doing a classic. We're doing Spirited Away. Spirited Away is a classic anime film. It is one of the more popular Ghibli films, and it's probably the biggest one technically, because didn't Spirited Away win an Oscar, I believe, right? I believe it's also their biggest film, just like monetarily, right? Like it made the most money. But anyway, Spirited Away, special film for me. This was one from my childhood. One of the first like real introductions into anime as a kid, even when I didn't know what anime was. I mean, like this was probably like super early on, like maybe like I can't even know, like before I was in school even, something like that. But yeah, I do want to talk a little bit about this film. I do want to talk about the very lean setup. I feel like people always, once we get to the bathhouse, that's like when the movie starts, right? But I do feel like the beginning is a little overlooked. And then obviously I'll talk about the bathhouse and why I think it's great. And then the ending, I think the ending is huge. I think it's probably the best sort of way to wrap up this narrative and like with the message and all that. So we'll get into that a little bit. Of course, before we do, make sure to go to the Tiger T YouTube channel, as well as any other podcast service to check out more episodes of this. And we also got Twitter, either for Tiger T itself or for me, if that is your thing. But again, beginning of this episode, let's get into the beginning of the movie. Like I said, it's a very lean setup. It tells us exactly what it needs to know, and it goes perfectly into it sets up the film perfectly. So they're moving to a new place. Immediately we got a change, which could definitely affect how all the characters act. Just moving to a new place in general is like a big thing. There's certain things that you're leaving behind, but also it's new opportunities. Chihiro does not like the change though. I mean, she's leaving all of her friends behind, her school, also like when you're a kid, like moving sucks, because where you are is everything you know. So if you moved away, especially if you move away to like another state or something, like that's that's literally like your life is starting over, so Chihiro is one of those kids, obviously doesn't like it, right? Hates it. She's bummed out. Not a fan. Definitely 2 thumbs down from Chihiro. But then, a little bit later we have the parents getting lost, which is huge, because it's like, how'd you get lost? But it's understandable. Again, if you're moving to like a new state, nowadays we obviously have like GPS, like Apple Maps, Google Maps, whatever, Waze, right? But like, understandable, moving to a new place, you're not very sure, like certain streets you can't really turn down, whatever, right? And then we have them eating random food and get turned into pigs. Now that is where the movie turns to a part where you're like, oh right, this is a Ghibli film. There's always one thing that's weird and kind of catapults the film into what it is, and that's the thing right here. First off, can we just talk about how weird the parents are, like you go to a restaurant, you just start eating food. Like, I can see you getting lost, you hit kind of a dead end, and you want to explore, you want to go, and you're like, okay, well, why don't we find some people for help, maybe they can let us know like which turn away to take or whatever, right? Then you start seeing this little market area with food, and you're like, okay, well, we haven't really eaten, we've been driving all day, let's stop for some food, right? I ain't mad at that, even though I imagine you're like, they could see their house from where they were, so I can't imagine they're more than like 5-10 minutes away. But sure, why not just stop somewhere to eat? Because I'm sure when you get there, like the movers are moving, so you don't really, you can't really cook a meal, so I'm cool with that, But then for you to just start eating the food, like food being out and being like a buffet type thing, sure, but like they just start eating and they're just cool with that, like you just start, like, even Chihiro as a child, again, children a lot of the times are a little more cautious of things. With certain things they're more cautious, and certain things they're more gung-ho. But even Chihiro, where she is, she's like, I don't think we should be doing that. I don't think we should just be eating this random food. And she's right, they shouldn't, because it turns you into pigs. But like, I don't know, that was just the weird part of the beginning for me, where like I never understood why the parents were like even as a kid watching this, I was like, parents made a bad call. You know, just eating some random food that they found. That's odd. But yeah, again, that is kind of the setup to the movie, where it's like they're moving to a new place. We immediately see all the characteristics that are necessary for us to know at the time of the parents and of Chihiro, and then we immediately see them turn into pigs, which introduces us to this world and like this little setting of where we're going to be, introducing us to some of the weird parts, but also the world, right, of spirits. So again, I think that obviously when the bathhouse starts, I mean, everything from here on is when the movie starts. Like them turning into pigs, that is the turning point, and now here we are. But I do just want to give credit to the setup of there's not a lot that happens, but it does show us in just a clean enough way of who the parents are and what they're all about, and kind of an introduction onto Chihiro, what she's all about, and it sets up nicely of where she's going to go throughout the rest of the film, because obviously she grows and learns throughout the film, but it's nice to see her set up and where she starts. So for just being a kid, like a lot of people kind of, I've seen people say that Chihiro's kind of annoying and whatever, but like I think she's in the beginning because she's supposed to be, because she's like 9. So I don't really fault her for that. Then we move on to the bathhouse. This is the main chunk right here, the bathhouse, okay? And I just want to talk about why I think this place is awesome. Why I think that bathhouse being pretty much 90% of the setting of this film is perfect. Like the fact that we can have a movie with one setting, the whole movie we're just in this building. Again, there's a little bit here and there outside the building, but for the most part, this is where we are the whole film. But there's enough variety here where it doesn't feel like we're just in one building for 2 hours, So we obviously have, it's for the spirits, no humans are allowed. Humans are not supposed to be here. It's a spirit place. So that right there is so cool, because, with them introducing that there's spirits, like spirits can be anything. So we see such a wide cast of characters, different character designs, different attitudes and personalities. Like that right there is just so cool for a setup. And then immediately we start getting into characters that we actually start learning about and seeing. Like we have Haku who saves her. And then we have Kamaji who vouches for her. He's the guy who's like in the boiler room. So immediately we have these characters, even Lin, who kind of takes her under her wing, even though initially it was reluctantly. Like, we have the bathhouse as a setting with all these spirits, but then we have characters inside of it that start helping her, and we start seeing some different points of view, because obviously these characters aren't really supposed to help her. She's a human. It's not really what it's supposed to be, but they do, like, they care. We're introduced to these characters that care, and they have hearts, and they they're not completely under, what's her name, Yubaba. We're not completely under her rule, where even in this bathhouse where everything is it's supposed to be run spick and span, like there are characters that have their own minds and they have their own thoughts and feelings, and for them to help Chihiro, just this random girl that stumbled upon this, like, they didn't have to, but they did, and they're also having their own little flavor into it. Like, obviously with Haku, who we learned was like kind of like Chihiro in a way, where his name was stolen and now he's trapped here, and he defies her at every moment. Then we have Kamaji, who more so in the background, but he's a little curmudgeon, because of all this, because of kind of having to run this whole thing, but he does have a heart. He does care. And then Lin, who was kind of the, we assume she's like in her 20s or something, maybe like mid to late 20s, and she doesn't really want to work here, but she is overworked, but she is reliable. Whatever people say about her, she does get her job done, and she's always stuck with the hardest work. But but she does speak up whenever she can, and let people know that, um, this isn't fair. She does try to get better working conditions for herself and the people that she, associates herself with. So we do have all these characters that don't just fall in line, I guess. And it is very nice that, they were the ones that, obviously, in hindsight, looking at the characters, we see that obviously these were the ones that were going to help Chihiro throughout this whole thing. And I guess it's nice, it's nice to, it's also probably nice for them to finally get a character, finally have this opportunity, like through someone like Chihiro, to do this, to be able to defy Yubaba, I'm sure they've never really had an opportunity like that before. And then speaking of her, just to touch on her again, like she's the one who runs the whole bathhouse. She's this big, powerful witch. So again, lots of different characters that are introduced to you, and you have to remember them all and see what they do. But even with that, like the little or a lot that we see of certain characters, it does build this world. And again, like it's so special because it's not even a world. Like it really just fleshes out this whole bathhouse scenario of like, people come in and they get a bath and they chill out, they buy stuff and they leave. It is a nice place for spirits to come and relax, obviously spend their money, but even with that, like they didn't even have to introduce a world to us. Like, yes, we do see the train tracks, we do go to, Yubaba's sister's house or whatever, but like for the most part, they are just keeping it confined to this one building. And they were able to do it in a way that doesn't feel like they thought of this because they didn't want to make other settings. It was in a way where it was like, this is all we need. And then through the bathhouse, we have Chihiro working there. She does learn responsibility. This is really one of the more mundane, but still the backbone to her learning responsibility and her growing as a character. We get to a little bit later where we learn that Haku is a dragon, so that just adds to the more of like mystique and not fairy tale, but like mythology that they kind of play with, with these different characters. Just speaking of that, like we do have another dragon type character where there was a like garbage spirit or whatever, and he turned out to be like a dragon, but he also turned out to be more than just a dragon. Like he was some crazy spirit that bestowed certain things on certain people when they do certain things for him. Obviously all tied to learning some sort of lesson. And that's where Chihiro comes into play, when Chihiro was able to do the certain bath and like take all the garbage off of him and gain the like ball thing, which I don't really think ever did anything. Maybe not. I don't know if that actually had any importance. But again, just kind of building this like crazy world and cast of characters, and there's like the atmosphere. We got the big baby. Very weird, very hard to look at, but it is like this big baby, and like it just, this movie does a good job with its characters of introducing them. You don't really need to learn too much about them, because them just existing builds lore. Of like even just the big baby existing, like you can think of like, okay, well, we never get into it in the movie, but like you can let your brain wander of like, how did Yubaba get the baby? Who was she with? Was it magic? What life did Yubaba have before the bathhouse? How old is the baby? Like, did she have the baby when she already ran the bathhouse? Was it because of the baby that she has the bathhouse? There's so many questions of just that. And I feel like that happens with each and every character. Like, I think a big thing that a lot of Spirited Away fans would like is like more of a backstory on Haku. Because even with that, we see he's a dragon. We have this like internal fight with him and Yubaba, where it's like Haku can't get away from her, but he still defies her because it's all he can do under contract or whatever. And then Yubaba tests him to his full limits, And then there's even those rumors that Lynn was talking about where it's like, oh yeah, there's rumors that like Haku does her dirty work, so it's like, what's the history of their relationship, and then upon that, what's history with Haku? Like, how did he get here? Was he also just a person that stumbled upon this and had to get a contract with Yubaba, which stole his name, the same way that Chihiro had to do it, although Chihiro was lucky enough and had people around her that was able to help her get out of the contract. You know what I mean? So I feel like that happens with most characters that we meet here, where it's like they do a great job of introducing them and telling us enough for us to care about them, but also in a way that we can speculate as to how these characters got here, not just like they're forcing us to create lore for them. They're like projecting lore onto us, which is it's so smart. And obviously, I forgot to mention, we also have No Face here, who causes a ruckus. Lots of questions on what No Face's purpose is. Of course, there's the theories around, why he's here and everything, and the meaning behind everything he does. But, I think him just existing is very interesting. Obviously him also taking the ride with Chihiro down the train, and then going to, Yubaba's sister's house, like that whole thing. Again, that adds a whole other layer of lore upon his character. So I think it's all interesting. And then we also have the ending. The ending, I think, is very good. Yubaba obviously testing her by having a bunch of pigs there, and Chihiro has to decide which pigs are her parents. In that moment, it's great because you go through and it's like there's no way to tell. And in the moment you're like, how is she gonna tell? Like, there's gonna be some, like, she's gonna pick the two that are right, and then we're gonna have some sort of explanation as to why she was able to do that, right? Obviously, it was kind of gearing up for, through her growth, she was able to spot certain things, and she isn't just like dismissive of everything. She was able to actually learn something, and that is able to help her remember who her parents actually are. But she was actually correct in saying that none of them were her parents. So it's a nice little, like movies have done this sort of thing before, where the answer is that there is no answer, right? But I think that in itself is still enough for, again, like, it kind of takes away the desperation of the whole test. And I mean, she's still right. Like, whether or not her family is there, like the fact that they aren't, she was able to pick that out. I mean, that is still her learning something, and her still being able to point out that, well, I do remember what my parents are, so in an alternate reality, the parents will be here and I could pick them out. But because they aren't, and I know what they look like, I know that none of these guys are my parents. And that itself, she passed the test. She's able to leave now. Again, I honestly don't think this is like, if I'm being completely honest, I feel like there was a better way to do this ending. I don't really know what the moral of the story is when it comes to specifically the parents. I don't really know what she learned. Like, I feel like it might have something to do with, I don't know, honestly. Her just remembering what the parents look like, I feel like there's no moral behind that. It's just memory that she can take, like, she can tell, like, I don't know if there's supposed to be some sort of, like, bond between them, that because she went through all this growth, like, the bond persisted. You know what I mean? Like, I honestly don't know what the moral of the story is. I can obviously point out, and I kind of already have through the episode, but like, you can easily point out the growth that's happened with her character, her becoming more responsible, her actually thinking about things, her actually wanting to help people instead of, being selfish, her, like, there's a lot of little things that she did throughout the movie that obviously exemplifies all of those characteristics. But the parents specifically, I don't understand. I understand why it was set up, because it has to be something to keep her here in the spirit world and force her to go to Yubaba and then meet all these characters and go through all that. But like, the closing of it, where it's like, oh yeah, right, the parents are pigs, we have to get them back, and then I don't know, I feel like it was just like a safe ending. It was just an ending that could happen and us be satisfied with it, of like, oh yeah, how do we end the movie? She comes back, and the only way she can get out of the contract is if we have this weird test with the parents to get the parents back. That's how we're gonna connect the initial Yubaba contract with the beginning of the parents becoming pigs. I feel like it was just like a logical intersection of those two plots, but it wasn't one that I feel like is actually impactful in really any way. Like everything surrounding it makes sense and can be somewhat emotional, or just kind of leans on the ideas that were built throughout the movie, but I don't feel like the act in itself of like this test of her remembering what her parents look like and knowing that none of her parents are there, I don't really think that means anything. But anyway, that's just me. I mean, I would definitely like to see what you guys think about that. What you guys think about the ending of the movie and like that test specifically. Like before that, obviously her helping them and actually still helping Yubaba, and after everything, still doing that, and then afterwards her talking with Haku, and the whole river thing, which is just a small thing, but I love they put that in there because it's like that's lore that we did not need. But the fact that it was like, oh, she fell in the river once and Haku was the river, I guess, and like it's crazy that they still added more lore in the last 3 minutes of the film. And then her going to her parents and her being more understanding with them, and that I'm sure that'll build, like if we ever got a sequel, we'd see a better relationship with her parents and how she's more understanding, and the parents probably learn something as well. But like the test itself, I want all you guys out there to please explain to me what your interpretation of the test was, because I just think it's weird. But yeah, and that's pretty much it. Again, Spirited Away I think is a great film. For the longest time, it was definitely my favorite Ghibli film. I think if I were to be honest with myself, and like rank all the Ghibli films now, I don't know that I can put Spirited Away first. Because I really don't know. Like if I were to watch all these again, I don't know that I like this movie more than I like Howl's Moving Castle, or Kiki's Delivery Service, or even Princess Mononoke. I don't know. I feel like Spirited Away for the longest time was just built on nostalgia for me. But hey, that being said, maybe at some point I'll definitely do more Ghibli movies at some point, but maybe I'll do like a week. I'll pick 5 other ones, and we'll burn through a bunch of them. Let me know if you'd want to see that. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Again, let me know what you thought of the movie, especially the ending there. And also, let me know what you want to see, because I think Ghibli famously does not do sequels. I think the closest thing was like there was like 2 cat movies where like one is technically a sequel to the other, even though it's more so like a spiritual sequel. It's not like a direct sequel, but Ghibli historically famously does not do sequels to their movies. And I'd like to know what you guys would think of, like, what would a sequel to this film look like? I think the easy answer, and I think it's easy for a reason, because I think it's a great idea, is maybe going back to Spirit World and like meeting Haku, and now it's like Haku is able to get out or something. I think that'd be cool. But yeah, go to Tiger to YouTube, other podcast services to get more episodes of this. Obviously, we got the 2 different Twitters you can go to. Links will be below as always. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Until next time, watch more Ghibli movies. We'll cover them. And let me know what other movies or shows or anything like that you want to see on this program.